Welcome to the third course in Job Interviewing in English. In this course, you'll learn strategies for mastering telephone interviews, strategies for asking your own questions, and strategies for handling advanced interviewing techniques. You'll learn about the first of those techniques in this module, behavioral interviewing. These interviews are also known as competency-based interviews. The word competence means the ability to do something well. The related word competency is similar to a skill, but it's more than a skill. Competencies include skills, but they also include abilities and behaviors, as well as knowledge that is fundamental to the use of a skill. Core competencies are typically those needed in any position of an organization. Critical competencies are those needed for a specific position in an organization. Let me give you an example of this in an IT context. Think about programming. To effectively write a computer program, you need good analytical, logical, and imaginative abilities, as well as the skill to code in a specific language. Being able to write code in a given language is a skill. Being able to create an effective program is a competency. Being able to create an elegant program is an advanced level of competency. Or this, being able to write is a skill. Being able to write a white paper is a competency. Being able to write a white paper that convinces customers that your organization's product will meet their needs is an advanced level of competency. Because competencies have more business value than skills, competency-based interviewing has broad worldwide appeal. This slide gives you an idea of how worldwide. WorldCat tracks libraries that have specific books. Robin Kessler's book, the first on competency-based interviewing, can be found throughout the world, and especially in countries where English is the native language. Since the 1970s, sophisticated employers such as AT&T, Johnson & Johnson, and Accenture have been using this method of interviewing to select candidates. To understand why, remember that a hiring organization is using an interview to predict how well you will perform on the job. They first need to know if you can do the job. That question is best framed in terms of the critical competencies for the position. Then they need to know if you will do the job. Do you have the personal makeup and qualities to take on tasks and complete them? Third, they need to know if you will be a good fit for the organization. Do your goals and outlook align with the mission of the organization? Some experts have claimed that traditional interviewing is no more than 10% accurate in answering these three questions. On the other hand, competency-based interviewing is said to be 55% predictive. The reason why starts with the basic idea behind this interviewing approach. The idea is that the most accurate predictor of future behavior is past behavior in similar situations. But the appeal of competency-based interviewing is much broader. An organization can define needed competencies for a position and use these to guide its hiring process. They can train interviewing staff to assess the competency levels of candidates. They can provide interviewing guides for senior management to use. The process permits a more systematic approach to hiring decisions. This helps organizations make fewer bad hires and more good hires. So given these benefits, it's not surprising to find that organizations put considerable effort into identifying and cataloging competencies. For example, one of the largest employers in Canada is the Canadian federal government. They have been working with competencies for almost 50 years, and they publish an extensive catalog of competencies required for various positions in the government. They define a competency as an observable or measurable knowledge, skill, ability, or behavioral characteristic that contributes to successful job performance. Put simply, competencies are the key characteristics that help successful performers be successful. Many organizations split competency into behavioral and technical categories. These are sometimes loosely referred to as soft skills and hard skills. Behavioral competencies refer to the interpersonal and personal attributes that are necessary for specific jobs across the organization. These competencies get at the question of how well you will fit in and whether you will perform. They refer to how you act, think, or feel, and they're products of your personal motives, your traits, and your self-image. Technical competencies refer to the knowledge, skills, and abilities relevant to specific jobs in the organization. These competencies get at the question of whether you can or cannot do the work. Technical competencies are usually acquired through specific learning or work experience. In using competencies, organizations elaborate a definition and a scale. The definition describes what the competency means. It varies widely depending on the position, but it provides a common language that everyone in the organization can use. Each competency also has a scale, which is divided into levels with descriptions of behaviors at each level. Organizations typically use a 4 or 5 level scale to rate competencies. At the bottom of the scale, a candidate provides no evidence of a competency. The scale then moves through progressively higher degrees of evidence up to an advanced level of expert capability. Now that you know how and why organizations use competency-based or behavioral interviews, you need to understand how to excel in this interview environment. What makes this approach unique? A competency-based question will be very specific. They are often "tell me about a time" questions. For instance, you might be asked, "Tell me about a time when you overcame a crisis," or "a time when you solved a problem," or "a time when you dealt with failure." The focus of the question is on a specific experience from your recent past when you exhibited that behavior. Your answer must be specific, it must be detailed, and it must be concrete. It must demonstrate evidence of what you did and how you did it. Now, this idea of evidence is critical. An interviewer will probe for specific evidence that demonstrates you have the competency the organization is looking for. An interviewer also looks for evidence to suggest that your character and attitude will be a good fit for the organizational culture. Your research into a position should thus include identifying the critical competencies needed by the organization. Those competencies may be listed online or even given to you beforehand. When not identified, you will have to do some thinking to come up with them. I hope it's clear to you that your preparation for interviewing takes on new importance when you're looking to succeed in the competency-based interview format. In the interview, your response needs to be specific and detailed. If you can tell the interviewer about particular situations that relate to each question, you will be far more effective and successful than someone who responds in general terms. An interviewer will also be listening for I statements. I said, I did, I decided, and so on. This will help the interviewer clearly understand your role in the situation you are describing. An interviewer cannot give you credit for a behavior not clearly associated with you, so avoid using we when describing your own behaviors. Many hiring managers are also concerned that candidates will exaggerate their accomplishments or even lie about them. You need to be prepared to provide the interviewers with references who can confirm the details of your examples. So do not lie. Do not stretch the truth. Do not embellish the facts. Finally, the best way to prepare is to take the initiative and maintain an arsenal of brief, relevant stories that you can tell. These are business stories that provide recent evidence of your behavioral and technical competencies. Back in the first course, you learned about building your story file. That's important for every interview, but it's essential to succeed in a competency-based interview. There you must have stories to back up your claims. Your storytelling is critical. So in the next lesson, you'll learn strategies for doing it well.